Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are at. We are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Nikita. We appreciate you attending our webinar today. Today we're just going to talk a little bit about commonly asked questions that we receive here at Tax 990 and take a significant amount of time to answer questions that you guys have live in our chat. If you do have questions along the way, please put them in the chat and we'll address them during our Q&A timeframes. We do want to mention we're not tax advisors. We will not be providing specific tax advice. We will purely be discussing IRS e-filing requirements and the process of e-filing. For specific tax questions, please contact a tax professional. This presentation will be recorded and available at tax990.com. We will also not be able to answer questions related to your specific Tax 990 account. So if you have an issue with your own account, you can give us a call or email us so we can look up that information together, but we won't be able to answer account-specific information live during the webinar. So during the webinar today, we'll be discussing IRS filing requirements, required information, filing deadlines, frequently asked questions that Tax 990 receives, and some time for live Q&A. To maintain your tax-exempt status and remain compliant with the IRS, organizations are required to file a 990 series return on an annual basis. The IRS mandated e-filing for 990 series returns on July 1st of 2019. Organizations filing a return with a tax year beginning date after July 1st of 2019 are required to e-file their returns moving forward. E-filing reduces the amount of filing errors and helps ensure that the IRS guidelines are met, meaning calculations are more accurate and information provided matches information in the IRS database. It makes filing and IRS processing more efficient and provides a quicker turnaround time on updated form status. There are several important pieces of information you'll need prior to filing. You'll want to confirm your organization's 9-digit EIN, the organization's address, the tax-exempt status, such as 501c3, the tax year beginning and ending date, and the principal officer information, such as their name, phone number, and address. The information you provide on your return must match the information on the IRS database. Most of this information can be found on your organization's IRS determination letter or on previous tax returns. If you do not have this documentation, you may need to contact the IRS prior to filing. As a public charity, the form you file will depend on your organization's financial activity during each year. The organization needs to determine whether they qualify for filing the 990N, the 990EZ, or the 990 series return based on their assets and gross receipts. You may be required to change the form type from year to year based on your changes to your financial situation. If you're a private foundation, you're required to file the 990PF regardless of your finances. As mentioned, there are 4 main 990 series return options. An organization needs to file one of these 4 forms annually to maintain tax-exempt status. The 990N is for organizations with gross receipts less than or equal to $50,000 at the end of the tax year. The 990EZ is the short form return for organizations exempt from income tax and can be filed if the organization's gross receipts were less than $200,000 and total assets at the end of the year were less than $500,000. The 990 form can be filed if the organization has either gross receipts greater than or equal to $200,000 or total assets greater than or equal to $500,000. And the 990PF return of private foundations is used to calculate the tax based on investment income and to report charitable distributions and activities. Section 4947A1, non-exempt charitable trusts, treated as private foundations would also complete the 990PF return annually. An organization that qualifies for the 990N can choose to file a larger form, such as the 990EZ or 990. However, organizations that qualify for the 990 or 990EZ cannot choose to file a smaller form, such as the 990N, and a private foundation must file the 990PF, regardless of financial status and activity. Your filing deadline is based on when your organization's tax year ends. Failure to file on an annual basis could result in penalties by the IRS or revocation of the organization's exempt status. Your annual 990 series return must be filed by the 15th day of the 5th month following the end of the organization's tax year. Right now, we're focusing on the November 15th deadline. If the 15th of the month falls on a weekend or federal holiday, the deadline is moved to the next business day. Most organizations have either a calendar tax year that runs from January 1st to December 31st, or a fiscal tax year that runs from July 1st through June 30th. However, a fiscal tax year can be any 12-month time frame other than January 1st through December 31st. If your tax year is July 1st through June 30th, then November 15th, which is in 2 days, this coming Wednesday, is your filing deadline. So your 990 series form must be filed by midnight on Wednesday, November 15th to meet those filing guidelines. If your tax year is January 1st through December 31st, and you filed an 8868 extension form back in May, your extension deadline is November 15th, and your 990 series return must be filed by midnight on November 15th. If your tax year is July 1st through June 30th and you're short on time or concerned you won't be able to complete the return on or prior to your deadline, you can file an 8868 extension form to apply for a 6-month deadline extension. If you already filed an extension and your extended deadline is November 15th, you cannot file another extension. You do just need to proceed with filing the 990 series form. If you have a November 15th deadline, we highly suggest you go ahead and get started now. Like I said, deadline's only 2 days away, and these can take a significant amount of time, so the sooner the better. You can go into your account and start filing that and transmit it as soon as possible. Okay, so before we jump into our common questions that our support team receives, let's go ahead and open the chat up for a live Q&A. If you post your questions, I'll provide a response. Please keep in mind that we are not tax advisors. We will not be providing specific tax advice. And if you have questions about your account specifically, please email us so we can take a look at the account. Stuart wants to know how to generate Schedule A on his 990EZ form. So with Tax 990, the schedules will generate on your form based on the information you provide. So if you indicate on your 990EZ that you're a 501c3, Schedule A will automatically generate for you to complete, and you'll walk through the steps to complete that form. Only the necessary parts of the schedule will generate. So if you indicate that you're a 501c3, and then you indicate which 501c3 you're working off of, the necessary parts of Schedule A, whether it's Part 2 or Part 3, will populate for you to open. So there's not a lot of guesswork involved in determining what schedules are required. The schedules are automatically included with your transmission. So when you transmit the 990 series return electronically in your account, the schedules will automatically be sent with that, and they will also automatically be included in your PDF download that will be available in the account. We have another question asking if they don't have an EFIN, can they still file the 990 return? So the answer is yes. With Tax 990, you do not need an EFIN to file the return. All you're going to need is an EIN to file that form. The EFIN is for the ability to transmit electronically, so Tax 990 provides that. all you need is the EIN of the organization. Mariana, yes. So if non-CPAs can file using Tax 990, so Tax 990 is geared towards both tax preparers and tax professionals, as well as organization members such as treasurers, bookkeepers, and management teams. So whether or not you are a paid preparer or an accountant, or you're just filing on behalf of your own organization, you can use Tax 990. Robert, there are some specific questions on the Schedule A regarding the prior year information, and there is a box that you can check to indicate that it hasn't been in operation for more than 5 years, and then you don't have to complete those sections. Please send us an email or give us a call for more instruction on that, because there are specific line items that you would have to check on the schedule to indicate that. Mariana, the 990T is for unrelated business income. As I mentioned, we're not tax advisors, so we can't tell you if you're required to file a 990T or what information to report on the 990T. But if your organization had unrelated business income of $1,000 or more during the tax year, then you may be required to complete a 990T in addition to your 990 form. Wendy, I'm not sure that I fully understand your question, but you will have the ability to input the value of depreciation, and then it does generate on Schedule O with an explanation as necessary. Suzanne, I would suggest contacting the IRS to confirm what tax years they request you file prior to dissolving your organization. Most of the time, they just request you file the current and 2 prior tax years, but that is a question specifically for the IRS. And I'm going to respond to your question here with the IRS tax exempt hotline number so you have someone to contact. You know what? I'll go ahead. I apologize. I will go ahead and provide the tax exempt hotline number for everybody. So if you have questions specifically for the IRS, you can give them a call. So if I say your name wrong, I truly apologize. I'm going to say Zoe Ann. In regards to your program services, please give us a call or respond to my email. I know we've been communicating back and forth, but your specific situation is based on the form type you've chosen, and the navigation is a little bit different because of that. And it's not something that I can explain here in the live chat because it's specific to you. So I'll follow up with more direction in my previous email. I think I got most of these questions here. Let me just review them one more time to confirm, and then we'll go ahead and move on. Jen, in order to change from a 990 or from a private foundation to a public charity, you would have to work with the IRS on that and file the 1023 application indicating that you're switching to a public charity, and then get that approval from the IRS and a new determination letter prior to choosing the 990EZ form. So there is a process. It's basically reapplying for tax exempt status under public charity instead of private foundation. So when you apply for tax exempt status, you're automatically considered a private foundation unless you clearly indicate on the application that you would like to be a public charity. And to change that, you do have to work with the IRS directly. John, the 990N threshold is based on gross receipts, and it cannot be more than $50,000. If you are at $51,000 or $50,000 you have to file the larger form, the 990EZ. They're very specific about that. If in the event that your organization's ever audited, you could be penalized if you're filing the wrong form based on gross receipts. So if you're any amount over that $50,000 threshold, you would be required to file the 990EZ instead. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and proceed. If I didn't get to your question, I apologize. We'll have another Q&A here in a few minutes, and you can just repost your question and we'll review them in the next Q&A session. But these have calmed down quite a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and proceed with some of the frequently asked questions that Tax 990 receives. How do I change my accounting method? So to change your accounting period, you would begin by filing the Form 3115, application for change in accounting method, as it requires IRS approval. The IRS will provide approval and confirmation of this change. Any communication you get from the IRS on changes, updates, or approvals will come in the mail. You won't get an email. You won't get any other kind of electronic notifications. The IRS will send you information in the mail. How do I check the status of my exempt status application? Once your application is assigned to a specialist and the IRS has not contacted you regarding your application, you can contact the IRS by phone, fax, or mail to check on the status of your application, or you can use that phone number that I provided earlier. We get a lot of questions about adding schedules, and we touched on this briefly in one of our Q&As, but Tax 990 will generate the schedule on your return for you based on the information you provide on the 990 series form. Additionally, only the necessary parts of the schedule will be generated, so you're not completing unnecessary information. Can I upload a completed document? Tax 990 does not provide the option to upload a completed document. The form will need to be completed on the site using the provided filing format. How do I reinstate my revoked tax exempt status? You can submit an application to the IRS to reinstate your status by completing Form 1023, 1024, or 1024A. Can I e-file prior years? Tax 990 does offer the current and 2 prior years. Right now, we have 2020, 2021, and 2022 available. Once the IRS releases the 2023 forms, probably mid-December, we will no longer offer 2020. So mid-December, we'll be offering 21, 22, and 23. We also support filing amended returns for the same tax years. So if you have an accepted return that you notice needs changes, you can file an amendment for any of the tax years that we support. If you do need to file a 2020 form, we suggest completing that as soon as possible, because once we no longer support the form, you won't be able to transmit it. Should IRS Form 990 filings be made public by exempt organizations? The IRS requires every exempt organization to make its Form 990 filing available for public inspection and copying. The annual return of the Form 990 must include all of the information furnished to the IRS, including all the statements, attachments, and supporting documents. Is it mandatory for organizations to list their primary activities and program services on the 990 or 990EZ? Yes, the organization must list at least one of the primary activity purposes and program services while filing the 990 or 990EZ form. It's important to be thorough in this information, as it oftentimes is what the IRS, donors, and other organizations look at to verify that you're adhering to your tax-exempt purpose and using your organization's funding appropriately. We do have a few webinars on this information. We have a program service webinar available on our website. So if you have other questions about that, you can check the website out and view that webinar. How do I know whether my organization is tax exempt from the IRS? Charitable organizations must file the 1023 with the IRS to recognize their tax exempt status. The organization will be considered tax exempt only upon the approval from the 1020 by the IRS. The 1023, I'm sorry. The organization will receive a determination letter after the IRS approved the tax exempt status, and the determination letter describes the tax exempt status of the organization. After the audit, what are the chances of the IRS rejecting the return? So I know I didn't mention this earlier, but Tax 990 does an internal audit to verify that you've met IRS instructions, meaning all necessary parts of the form have been completed and all the calculations are accurate. So you're not forgetting something that the IRS requires. We're not able to guarantee that a return is accepted. An advantage we provide is if your return is rejected, you'll be able to review the IRS rejection errors and have the opportunity to fix and retransmit your return for no additional charge. Oftentimes, a return is only rejected if information that is specifically described in the determination letter is not reported accordingly on the 990 series form. For example, if you provide the wrong tax year or exempt status, your return will likely be rejected. Does a tax preparer with a PTIN need an ERO number to e-file Form 990 return? No. If you are a tax preparer and you have a PTIN number, there is no need to have an ERO number. They can e-file the return with just their PTIN number and the organization's EIN. Why doesn't the EIN show up in your application? So when you create a new account or add a new organization to your existing account, there are circumstances in which your EIN won't be found. If your organization is new and recently filed 1023 or Form 1024, the IRS Public Registry may not be updated yet. And as we only update our database at specific time intervals, your EIN information may not yet be updated in our system. If this happens, you can still click continue and manually add your EIN and organization information. The only thing that happens differently when your organization is found is that the organization information auto-populates for you. So there's nothing wrong with anything if your EIN's not found. You can proceed. The only difference is we can't assist by auto-populating some of that information for you, and you'll have to manually enter things like the address, the name of the organization, the principal officer information, so on and so forth. If your EIN is found, that just means that with our IRS updates, we were able to cross-reference your information with the IRS database and pull that for you. When to choose final or initial return? If you've attended some of our other webinars, you've heard me talk about this a lot because we do see this question a lot. A final return is selected if the organization is dissolving or if it is the last return the organization will be filing. An initial return is selected if the organization has never filed a 990 series return in the past. If it's not your final or initial return, you can leave this section blank. Oftentimes what happens is clients think, well, this is the first return I'm filing for this tax year, so it's my initial return. And that is inaccurate. If you filed a return last year or the year before or ever in the past, then it's not your initial return. And the same thing goes for the final return. Organizations will get confused saying, well, it's the final one I choose to file for this tax year. But that's inaccurate. You would only indicate final return if you do not intend to ever in any future tax year file another return. What tax year do you file? So for fiscal tax year filers, this can get confusing. So the form tax year is based on the beginning date. If your tax year begins in 2021 and ends in 2022, you would select to file a tax year 2021 return, not a 2022 return. For example, if you're filing for July 1st, 2021 through June 30th of 2022, you would file a 2021 tax year form. The following year, when you complete a 2022 through 2023 tax year, you'll file a 2022 tax form. And if you have questions on that, please reach out to us because we would hate for you to complete the wrong form and transmit it with the wrong year's information on it. So just keep in mind, you choose the tax year based off the beginning date. So for the November 15th deadline, would be a July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. We get a lot of questions on the signature process when e-filing. If you're filing on behalf of your organization, such as a treasurer or bookkeeper or president, a physical signature is not required. The IRS does not require a signature on the form when e-filing. If you're filing as a paid preparer, such as an accountant, you'll be required to complete the 8453 TE form and have the organization member sign the document electronically. A lot of states require a signed document. And again, Tax 990 strictly follows IRS guidelines, so we don't have the option to sign the form if you're filing on behalf of your own organization. However, you can print a copy after transmitting and physically sign it and send it into whatever state Department of Revenue or entity is required. The only time the 8453 TE is required is if you have created your account, your Tax 990 account, as a paid preparer and provided your PTIN and paid preparer information when signing up for your account. If you just create your account and all you do is add your email address, password, and your name, then it's not required. There's a specific box to indicate if you're creating an account as a paid preparer. If you don't do that, you won't be asked to complete the 8453 TE. If you do that and you're still filing on behalf of your own organization, so if you create a paid preparer tax professional account and you add PTIN information and then you file on behalf of your own organization, you still will be required to complete the 8453 TE because your account is registered as a preparer account. Mariana, I hope that answers your question regarding being a bookkeeper and using the 8453 TE. Moving on, what type of contribution is it? So on Schedule B, there are 3 different types of contributions. There's a cash, non-cash, and payroll contribution option, and you have to select one of them for each contributor reported. So a cash contribution is if a cash contribution came directly from a contributor in the form of cash, credit card, check, etc. That would be the person box. Non-cash is for any contribution of property or time or anything other than cash, anything not of a monetary value. And payroll is if an employee's cash contribution was forwarded by an employer. That's when you would check the payroll box, as in a payroll deduction. Okay. Do you need to file if your tax exempt application is pending? So to properly file a return before you receive tax exempt status, you need to mark item B, the application pending box on your form. So the form will be accepted by the IRS. That just indicates to the IRS that you are aware your application is pending and you're filing anyways. What's the difference between private operating and non-operating foundation? So a private operating foundation, and there is so much confusion on this, but a private operating foundation is any private foundation that spends at least 85% of its adjusted net income directly for the active conduct of its exempt activities. A non-operating foundation is a foundation that grants money and distributes funds to other charitable organizations. I do have a very extensive webinar on this topic as well. So if you are a private foundation and you're unsure about your filing requirements, check out our private foundation specific webinar we hosted a couple weeks ago. Do you need an excuse to get a 6-month extension? No, you do not need an excuse to file an 8868 extension as long as you file the extension before or on your original deadline. You don't need to provide an explanation for the extension. If you miss the deadline, then you need to just file the 990 series form. You cannot file an extension form after your deadline. So if your deadline is November 15th and you know there is no way that you're going to get your 990 form done by November 15th, you have to file your extension form by November 15th. On November 16th, if you haven't filed the 990 form or the extension form, you can't file the extension. You have to just go ahead and do the 990 form, and you'll probably still start accruing penalties because you're filing late. If you have zero unrelated business income, are you required to file the 990T form? So the 990T form is used to report unrelated business income. This form can be filed in addition to the 990 series return. And the 990T is only required if reporting $1,000 or more of unrelated business income on the 990 return. If you have additional questions on the 990T, we also have a webinar on that one. At tax990.com/webinars, you can check out all of our previous webinars that are specific to certain forms. Does the Tax 990 support all the accompanying forms of the 990T? Tax 990 supports several of the accompanying forms, such as the 8949, 1041, 4797, 4562, 1120 Schedule D, 8995, and 1041 Schedule D. Can you jump between form and interview based? We get this question a lot from clients that have been using us. So we offer two different filing formats. The interview based is a question and answer format, and the form based is a more of a PDF resemblance, and you fill the form out line by line. You cannot jump back and forth between the filing formats. Anytime that you choose to change your filing format, you will start over on the return. Like I said, the form-based filing format looks similar to the IRS PDF of the form and can be completed line by line, and then the interview-based is more of a question and answer format. Keep in mind, you're not asked to pay for the form until you're ready to transmit it, so you can start in one filing format, and if it's not working for you, you can delete that and try it in the other filing format. But you cannot switch back and forth. It will start over on your form each time. My organization's about to be terminated. What things should I consider before filing the final return? If your organization is filing a final return, there is certain information you'll need to disclose. This information will differ depending on the 990 series return you're filing. You'll need to select that it's a final return on the form, and then you'll likely have to complete Schedule N. How long after transmitting will I receive an acceptance? When you file with Tax 990, your return is automatically sent to the IRS. So once you click transmit, depending on the volume of the returns the IRS is processing, you'll typically see a status update 24 to 48 hours. During busy deadline seasons, this time frame can increase. What is the penalty for filing late? A penalty of $20 a day or $105 a day for large organizations will be imposed for the late filing. The penalty amount can go up to a maximum of $10,500 or 5% of the organization's annual gross receipts. Since I pay several of our organization members, can I file payroll forms with you as well? So for organizations that pay independent contractors or pay any of the organization members, you will likely have to also file payroll forms such as the W-2 and 1099. Tax 990 specifically does not offer those forms. However, our sister product, Tax Bandits, does offer the 1099 and W-2 forms in an e-file format. So Tax 990 is a market-leading IRS authorized e-file provider. We have over a decade of experience e-filing tax forms. When you file with Tax 990, we do provide you with excellent live customer support, competitive pricing, and cutting-edge features, and the option to file for previous tax years. So since the IRS has mandated e-filing, Tax 990 is your solution for electronically filing your annual 990 series return. If you don't already have an account with Tax 990, you just go tax990.com and sign up for a new account, and then you can get started right away on your form. Filing a return is a short 5-step process. You begin by adding your organization. You only have to add the organization once, and it will save the information in your account year after year. You'll choose the form you need to file and complete it using either our form or interview-based filing method. And once you've completed the return, it will go through the internal audit to confirm all the information meets the IRS instructions and everything that is required to be completed by the IRS has been completed. We'll then provide the option to share the return with other members of the organization, and then the final step is to transmit it to the IRS. I will also note here that if you file this return for multiple organizations, you can manage all of those organizations from the same Tax 990 account, just to help you streamline that process. Okay, let's do another Q&A. I've got a couple questions here to catch up on, but please go ahead and continue adding them to the chat, and we'll review them as I get through. Give me just a second to read over a couple of these. Linda, I would suggest confirming with the IRS. Linda's asking if they need to file a short year return if the organization started in December, if a short year would be required. Typically, a short year is only completed if you're changing your tax period or it's your final return. So I would suggest contacting the IRS to confirm that information. They may not request that you file until the end of your tax year. Valerie, I'm not able to determine specific reporting requirements as to whether or not you should report pledges on Schedule B. You would have to contact the IRS or an accountant to confirm that. Like I said, we can't provide specific reporting or tax advice. So we have a question. This is actually a really good question. If you submit your return on time by the 15th by November 15th, you get it transmitted on time, and it's rejected, you have a 5-day grace period to edit and retransmit that return to still adhere to that filing deadline. Again, we've got several questions about what is considered a cash contribution. If a donor pays directly to a third party, again, I can't determine specific reporting and how you should indicate that on Schedule B. Again, at this time, we support 20, 21, and 22. In December, we will no longer support the 2020 tax year form. If you need to file prior year returns, you can do that in your Tax 990 account. If you're not sure what you need to file, go ahead and give the IRS a call first to verify what they need you to file, what prior years you are required to file, and then you can give us a call and we can help you get you started on those prior years. David, if you are a private foundation and you are consistently filing your 990 PF return, it's not likely that your status is going to be revoked based on the type of grants payments that your organization makes. But you would need to confirm that information with the IRS. Like I said, their requirement is that you file annually. Whether that has anything to do with the type of grants that you're making, I'm not sure. Clara, I did talk about penalties a little bit, but Clara's question is there a penalty for late filing even if there is no tax owed? Yes, the IRS starts at $20 a day for filing late, so you really don't want to be late. Linda, you are able to provide a reasonable cause explanation on the return for indicating why you're filing late or why something wasn't initially filed. I believe that's section B on the first page of the forms. You can indicate a reasonable cause. I'm not able to tell you what that reasonable cause would be because that would be considered specific tax advice. But the IRS would likely be able to provide some guidance on what a reasonable cause explanation may be considered. We have one question. What does unrelated business mean? So if your organization has income that isn't related to activities or business that the organization operated, that would be considered unrelated business income. Zoe, Ann, if you want to specify what questions you have about the extension, I'd be happy to go in further detail. If your deadline is November 15th to file the 990 form, you can file the extension before the November 15th to get an automatic 6-month extension, which would make your new deadline May 15th of 2024. And there is not a reason, you don't have to provide a reason for applying for that extension. You just have to complete and transmit the form. And we do have the 8868 available on tax990.com. Judith, we do not work with state filing. We only offer the California 199 form as far as state filing goes. Any other state outside of California, you would have to contact the Department of Revenue for that state to determine their specific state filing requirements. Robert is wondering how to transfer his Tax 990 account to another person. You can do that. The easiest way for you to do that would be to go in and edit your account information and change the email address on file for the account, Robert. So if your account is currently under your email address, you can go into your account settings and change the email address on file to whoever will be taking over, and then they'll be able to set their own password and access the account. Judith, if your tax year is January through December and you filed the 8868 back in May, your new deadline would be November 15th. You cannot file another 8868 form. The IRS will only allow one per tax year. So on November 15th, you have to file your 990 series form. Jen, if you're not sure what you owe the IRS as far as fines, I sent a response to everybody with the IRS tax exempt hotline. Give them a call and they can provide you guidance on where to go to make your payments, how much is due for your organization, and any other additional penalty information that you have. We do have a question about whether or not the IRS will actually answer the phone. With the deadline coming up, it is going to be difficult, I won't lie. Getting through to them will be difficult. I suggest trying either really early in the morning or later in the afternoon, evening. Trying right at the lunch hour is not ideal because that's when everybody else is contacting them as well. But oftentimes it's the only way to get these types of things resolved, and it is a process. We do understand that, but the IRS does have to get involved at some point, and contacting them via phone is sometimes the only way to go about that. Roseanne, we do not have an option to upload any kind of bulk upload or spreadsheet for gains and losses on the 990 PF form. You would have to manually enter that information. Judith, the FTB does require that electronic transmission of the California form as well. We do offer the CA 199 form, and if you complete your 990 with us first and it's accepted, and then you complete the California form, it will pull the page 2 part 2 information on onto your California form for you, so you don't have to complete that, or you can upload a completed 990 form. Rebecca, I'm not sure I'm understanding your 990T question. If you could provide further explanation, that would be helpful. So the codes that the IRS provides, they update that annually, and there is an option, I believe it's the bottom of the code list. If you don't find a code that meets your reporting, there is an option at the bottom of the list, and I can't remember off the top of my head what the code is, but it's basically an other, and then you can provide a description. Each Schedule A will have its own code, so you can't report the same code on multiple Schedule A's, but you can add multiple Schedule A's to the form, each with a different code. I don't think that answered the question that you were asking here. If not, you can send me an email and I can try to provide further guidance, or if you just want to respond here, that's fine too. Pamela is asking if 2 people can access the Tax 990 account. You can add additional members to your account so that they can access the account and help you complete the return. We advise that only the main account holder pay and transmit the form. However, if you're just needing to share the return with other members of the organization, you have the option at the end to just share electronically, so they only see a PDF and can't edit the form. If you want somebody to come in and help you complete the form, then you can add them as an additional member, and they would be able to create their own account and have access to the organization you provided them with. For information on penalties, you guys, I apologize. I can't answer a lot of these questions about penalties because they're very specific to your organization. You would have to contact the IRS for any kind of dispute to a penalty or information on what kind of penalties you owe or what makes you a large organization and considered that larger $105 a day amount. Again, the schedules are based off the information you provide on the return, and that goes for all of the returns that we support. So if you complete a return and the information provided generates the necessary schedule, then you'll be required to complete it. If you complete a return and the information you provide does not generate a schedule, that would mean that it's not required based off how you've completed the form. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and move on now. If I didn't get to your question, I do apologize. Please send us an email and I'll post our email address here shortly. We had some really great questions and hopefully you guys got those resolved and are able to proceed. We do offer customer support that's dedicated, personalized, and available. You won't need to be on hold for several hours or be put on a callback list. When you need assistance with your return, you can give us a call or reach out via chat or email. We are here to help you along the way, but please keep in mind as the November 15th deadline approaches, our wait times may be longer, but you can get started on your annual 990 series return now. If you do call with questions, it will be the same process. We are not able to provide tax advice or specific reporting information, but we can help you with navigation and understanding some of the audit errors or questions that you have. We do have a blog and YouTube channel with a lot of helpful content. The videos on our YouTube channel can be very quick step-by-step instructions on completing a basic process. So if you check out our YouTube channel for any kind of step-by-step guides, and our blog just has a lot of helpful content related to specific parts of forms or questions we often get or anything in between really. So check those out for any additional information. And yeah, just reach out to us. Our support team is available Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. You can reach us at that phone number on the screen or send an email to support@tax990.com. If we do not get to your phone call, if we're on the other line, you can leave us a voicemail and we'll return your call before we leave for the day. So you will hear from us no matter what if you leave us a voicemail. So anything else, you guys, we're here for you. Reach out and good luck with your forms and good luck with your deadline. And thank you for attending today.